views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I am joined by the host of the award-winning Sun Prairie News program. You know him, you love him. He's America's sweetheart. It's Dan Presser.
Wow, America's sweetheart.
Yeah.
Now. Thank you very much. Well, you're the award-winning one. I'm just happy to be on set with the corn-eating king.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your big win.
A lot of corn. Corn today, corn tomorrow.
You look good, though, still.
Oh, yeah. It was an impressive victory, I'll say that. Let's talk about some movies, though. We got a bunch of movies to talk about. That's why you're here.
It is why I'm here.
We saw some movies in the theater. We saw some movies at home. We saw some classics. So let's get started with what we have on the marquee this week in theaters. We got a movie called Beast from director Balthazar Kormacor. Stars Idris Elba as Dr. Nate Samuels. Dr. Nate Samuels and his daughters, Mir and Nora, fly into Africa to stay with an old family friend and possibly heal from the recent loss of the girl's mother to cancer. What they don't know is elsewhere in the area, there's a large male lion who is mourning in a very different way after poachers have killed his entire pride, and this lion is out for revenge. So as the family friend, Martin, played by Charlton Copley, takes Nate and his daughters out for a safari, they come across increasingly brutal signs that a lion has been attacking in unusual ways, wiping out a village of people, attacking other lions. And this is the setup for a film that features a lion hunting everyone within its range, basically. An unstoppable killing machine. You might ask yourself, do I get Idris Elba punching a lion in the face? Yes, you do.
Of course.
You better believe it. I don't know. For me, one of the infuriating and almost comical things for me was the way his daughters never listened. Nor acted rationally at all. At one point, his oldest daughter, right amidst basically a lion attack, brings up that she's angry at her dad about how he treated her. He wasn't around for their mother. And I'm like, this isn't how you act when your lion just attempted to kill you. Another one jumps out of the car and just runs off moments after seeing a lion maul someone.
Yep.
It was ridiculous.
You know, you're used to that in thriller movies, a lot, or horror movies. People don't listen. No, don't go there, because that's part of the scariness of it all. But I wrote that down exactly. I said, how many times does a guy have to tell his kids to stay in the car and they don't listen?
They stumble upon a village of people who have all been slain by a lion, and the younger daughter just wanders off.
She just wanders off, knowing, there's a killer lion around. That just drove me nuts as well. And then they're honking horns and stuff like that when he's trying to, get a bead on a lion. It's like, really? And the lion seemed almost all-knowing. The
lion knew. I think because they're communicating through walkie-talkies. And I mentioned to my buddy at one point when they're like, hey, we're going to go here. I was like, oh, now the lion knows the plan. Yeah. He heard it.
Yeah.
He understands it.
Yeah, he understands everything, and he knows that, he's grabbing the gun from under the car, and I have to grab that gun before he gets it and shoots me.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Just like you said, the whole punching a lion in the nose and, taking on a 600-pound lion. Doesn't everybody do that on a trip to South Africa?
Yeah. So what was driving me nuts, too, was I feel like Idris Elba's character of Nate really set his daughters up poorly throughout this movie. Kind of left them open for several attacks because he refused to roll up windows or close doors.
Yeah.
And it was driving me nuts as the movie went along. It starts with a lion is out there, stay in the car. And I'm like, why don't you roll that window up? That comes into play immediately.
Yeah.
At one point, his daughter is like sleeping with her head next to the open window. Like, that's not going to end well. And when they try and hide it, multiple times. They go into a building, he leaves the door open, and I'm like, the lion's coming through that door.
Yeah. There were a few moments. I mean, a few of those moments, you're always looking in the background, and you kind of see some, it's kind of like when you're watching Jaws, and you see, there's something coming. Yeah. There's something's going to happen here. So those are moments I forgive in thriller movies, but it just didn't flow. It did. I mean, the screenplay was kind of dopey.
Yeah.
The whole thing just...
It's weird.
If you like this kind of movie, you probably will enjoy yourself, I guess.
I feel like it's like any other man versus animal movie, whether it's a big snake, well, you know, a shark, an alligator, or whatever. It's kind of the same premise constantly.
Right.
You have to really take or leave the quality of it. I felt like Idris Elba's character, though, who's a doctor, also claims he's from America at one point.
Yeah.
His accent was in and out. In the beginning of the movie, he's going with this British accent. At one point, he runs across some guys, and they're like, "Are you an American?" He's like, "Yes, I am." And I was like, "Wait a minute."
No, but you have a British accent.
You got a different accent earlier. But it felt like he was like, I need the backstory where he was like a bushman for years because he has like supernatural abilities. He's grabbing snakes.
Yeah.
He's
well, he lived there for a while, right? I mean,
I guess.
With his wife, who he was estranged from.
He never loses his cool.
Yeah, he doesn't. And you know, I love Idris Elba.
Yes.
I mean, as an actor, he's one of my favorites. I sat there watching this thinking, why did you do this movie? Like, why did you don't need to do this kind of a movie, I thought to myself. But, you know.
I thought the same thing because I thought if this movie didn't have Idris Elba in it, it'd be real bad.
Yeah, and I wrote down 3 things that I liked.
Yeah.
There were some great shots of the South African wilderness.
Oh, yeah.
Some beautiful, beautiful shots. It only lasts 90 minutes, so that's a good thing. It's not like, oh my God, you're looking at your watch constantly. Yeah. And if you like this kind of movie, you'll probably enjoy yourself. It's just not a good piece of filmmaking.
It's not a thinker, but it got me. A couple of jump scares got me.
That's exactly,
me
too.
All of a sudden there's a roar and a lion pops up.
Yep.
Got me there.
Same here, and if I'm scared, I scare easily. So, I was scared. So,
all right.
If I'd have watched that at home, I'd have felt better.
Yeah, sure. All right, what did you end up giving Beast?
So I originally was going to give it a 2.5 just because of Idris Elba.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it a 2 because I think that's what it deserves as a 2.
Yeah, I agree. I believe I gave it 2 stars as well because. Yeah, it's just super thin.
Yeah.
Super thin.
It was.
You've seen this movie before, just featuring different animals.
And, it's a survivor thriller, and later we're going to talk about a throwback survivor thriller that really just puts this one to shame.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right, let's turn to what we have on the streaming spotlight. Speaking of movies that we watched at home, what do you have for us?
So we're going to be doing Not Okay, which was directed by Quinn Shepard. And this is a dark comedy and satire, I would say, written and directed by Shepard. Danny, who is played by Zoe Deutsch, is it Deutsch or Dutch? Deutsch, okay. She's a young woman who works for a New York magazine called Depravity. She's struggling with her job as a photo editor and her identity too. She's just not sure who she is, and she really wants to be famous and loved by millions of people who are on social media and on the internet. Not to mention she wishes she had a few friends. She has a hard time making friends. She also wants to be a writer, so to impress her social media influencer coworker Colin, played by Dylan O'Brien, she creates a fictitious writer's retreat in Paris, which she then proceeds to fake being at by doctoring photos of herself and adding Paris scenes in the background. It's pretty much all innocent Brady Bunch fun until she posts a photo of herself supposedly at the Arc de Triomphe moments before terrorists bomb it and other Paris landmarks. And from there on, the lie grows.
Yes.
And it grows. And Danny makes she makes the decision to lean into that lie when she garners attention from Colin and other people and on the internet, and she claims to have witnessed the bombing. And to make the lie even worse, she ends up joining a victim support group where she befriends teenage anti-gun activist named Rowan Aldrin, played brilliantly by Mia Isaac. And Rowan's a school shooting survivor who has a huge social media following, and then she makes matters even worse by writing an article for her magazine. Danny writes an article for her magazine by stealing basically what Rowan tells her in a moment of confidential friendship.
Right.
And then she asks Rowan to hashtag it and send it out, and the hashtag is I Am Not Okay, the name of the movie, and of course it gets a ton of following, and from there on it's cringeworthy at times, the way that Danny acts. She's just immoral. She's
really tone deaf to what's around her.
I mean, people say things. I'll give her credit for being an optimist. I mean, she kind of always kind of bounces out of stuff, but it's awful. And finally, as you know, throughout the whole movie, she's been lying and she's lying and she's lying, and finally one of her coworker exposes her by fact-checking the whole retreat and finding out that she really wasn't there, and she confronts Danny about it, and Danny then has to come clean on the internet, and of course, the social media world, she becomes a pariah, everybody hates her, and then we see her at a victim support group for people who are ashamed on the internet, and it all comes to a head in the end. So I don't want to give away the ending, because that was the one surprise in the whole movie.
It was actually. I did not expect how it was going to wrap up. The character of Danny is tough, and I feel like this movie used to be done. It would be set in like a high school atmosphere with teenagers.
Yeah.
You know,
kind of like Mean Girls.
Yeah, telling the lie, and then finally you have to like put something in school paper or whatever, like, oh, I got busted, and you know, it's different when it's someone in their 20s out in the workplace.
Yeah.
And she's just so sad, kind of person that's constantly refreshing her Instagram feed to see if she got another like.
Yes.
You know, and just is glomming on to anything. She just wants to be like one of these fake people.
It's just
and will do anything to be one of these fake people.
Right. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to watch, and I thought Zoe Deutsch actually did a really good job with that, of
very nuanced,
portraying that character. You know, and she plays the kind of person who I can't stand, who takes someone else's tragedy, makes it about themselves, and like, I'm more affected by this tragedy than anyone else. Like, you're not even really a part of this.
Right.
Like, I know people like this.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, you can't take what's happened to me, you know. And I like the two leads. I like Danny. I like Rowan. I thought both of them were good. Rowan had a spoken word near the end of the film that I thought was really powerful.
Fantastic.
Really love that.
Yep.
I thought she was great.
Yep.
You know, the fact that Rowan is a character that's all about truth. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't know that she's talking to someone who's living a lie.
Yes.
Is all about lies. I like that. And unfortunately, as I'm watching this, I'm like, unfortunately, this character isn't an uncommon avatar for people these days. There's a lot of people who live life online, and we're seeing this. I've noticed in recent months, kind of seeing this character portrayed in movies more often, of this social media obsessed person.
Yeah.
Saw it in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies a couple weeks ago. Seen a few movies recently, and I feel like it's this people who are obsessed with social media stardom. It's kind of interesting how it's popping up. I feel like it's popping up more because you have a generation of filmmakers who grew up in the social media atmosphere and are now making films, and so this is kind of something to look at.
And I was telling you before, I watched this movie, and I watched it about halfway through, and I stopped watching it because I just couldn't. I didn't get the inside jokes. I'm not a big social media person. I'm not really their target audience.
Sure.
But I imagined that people who are much more adept with social media and are much more into it probably got all that stuff right at the beginning. And I went back to it simply because, like you said, I thought the performances by Zoe Deutsch and Mia Isaac were fantastic. They were both very good.
Yeah.
There's that part in the beginning where they say there's themes of trauma and a very unlikable female protagonist in the movie, and that was kind of funny, but true. But the one thing, I thought they could have leaned into her being unlikable a little bit more, because I started to feel empathy for her at one point, and I felt bad about
sympathetic,
that.
But they introduced the movie of she's the worst person in the world. A montage of people online being like, Danny is the worst person in the world, blah, blah. And I'm going, I hate this character.
Right.
I'm supposed to hate this character probably.
Exactly.
And then they started to try and turn her sympathetic, and I was pushing against it, like, I don't want to have her be sympathetic.
Same here.
She's done horrible, horrible things.
And she was taking advantage of Rowan.
Unrepentant of it completely. And she ruined this poor girl who actually had something to say in a way of saying it. And she ruined her credibility. And so I was kind of pushing back inside against that.
I agree.
And so I kind of appreciate how they ended up wrapping things up.
Same with me. That's what redeemed it for me, was the ending.
Yeah.
I sat there thinking, no, don't do it. And then, not to tell you what happened, but it was redemption at the end for me. And so that saved the movie, really, for me. So what'd you give it?
Well, let's go to you, because I think that's how the scores are set up. Sorry. What did you give it?
I think I gave this movie a 2.5. Is that what it says on the screen? I believe it's what I gave it, because I did like the performances by the two leads. I did not like the guy who played Colin.
Oh, Dylan O'Brien,
Dylan O'Brien. There was a lot of other characters in this movie that just didn't have a lot of. I guess they were as shallow as the people that make their lives only on social media. You know, so
I felt like Dylan O'Brien was doing a poor man's Pete Davidson impression.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
So I felt like, I don't know. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was enjoyable enough. I liked the message to it. I liked the 2 lead performances. But it wasn't great.
No. But it's worth a watch at home.
Flick. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Good streaming flick. And I believe it's over on Hulu.
Hulu. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to check that out. The next movie I'm going to talk about, I'm going to carry on with my Indian cinema focus. Dan, if you don't know, I've been covering Indian movies every couple of weeks because I've been getting a nice response
You're into
from
Bollywood.
the folks over in India. They've provided me a lot of great... So, a couple weeks ago, I covered a movie called KGF Chapter 1. And now the newest chapter came out, KGF Chapter 2, from director Prashant Neel, stars the big, I guess, rock star in India, Yash, who stars Rocky, the star of both films. This is a sequel. We pick up with the story of El Dorado and the rise and power of young Rocky. The story is narrated by the author of who's telling the story, his son. Rocky has built this indestructible empire. If you don't know, the first movie is very much like Scarface.
Oh.
He rose to power. He took down the big boss who owns this gold mine, the KGF, and he took the seat of power. And he's become bloodthirsty, power hungry.
Makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, he's built this indestructible empire in KGF, but he has his sights set on conquering even more. Rocky is seemingly without equal in strength, cunning, ruthlessness. He comes up against the deadly Adhira, who is played by Sanjay Dutt, who we see here. Adhira is hell-bent on stopping Rocky from taking over everything. Rocky has grown so large that he's drawing the attention of everyone and has made enemies who are willing to band together to take him down, really. He's drunk on power, which makes his underlings wish for revolt as well. And so he's got kind of enemies coming from all directions. He's not your prototypical protagonist, right? He's tough. He's kind of rough to root for at times. But we also see a bit of the tender side of this man with a love story and reminders of what draws him to this thirst for power, the dying wishes of his mother, who told him that he needed to take on this mantle out of poverty and become something powerful. And I felt that this film was a big step up from the first film. I believe the first film I gave 3.5 stars. This film, big action pieces that are shot so cinematically, just gorgeous throughout. Rocky has an entrance in this film. It's incredible. He's walking up these temple steps in slow motion as these drummers that are covered in this white powder are pounding these big drums, and he's slow-mo walking through this mist, and I'm like,
sounds cool.
Oh, I like this. And Adhira, who's the villain of the movie, he is introduced by just walking through fire with this sword, and he's seeking revenge. I was like, let's do it. Let's go.
You're getting chills.
Yeah. Rocky spends a lot of time just walking around with a sledgehammer with bad intentions. And so it's fun. And I feel like Yash, who has become, I guess, like the rock of Indian cinema.
Okay.
He's this huge thing. He's like the definition of machismo in this thing. What he actually reminded me of he reminds me of Jason Momoa. That energy that Jason Momoa puts out, very similar. And I feel like just the frame in this movie is just filled to the brim throughout. It's kind of a 3-hour adrenaline ride. It's crazy. And it reminded me a lot watching it of 300.
Okay.
And you have a narrator telling this legendary story, just so much machismo, over-the-top action. But then at another point, it turns into Mad Max Fury Road for a little while. It's this guys out in this wasteland and these crazy vehicles fighting each other as they're driving along,
hanging off their cars.
I'm in for it, and so I really enjoyed.
You really
this movie.
liked it.
I did.
Well, just watching the trailer, and I didn't see the movie at all, but the trailer, when you said, I was thinking to myself, boy, that looks like really beautifully cinematically.
It is. Yeah.
So it looks like, but it's subtitled. Right.
It's subtitled, parts in English. I mean, it's literally like half a sentence will be said in English.
Okay.
The rest in I believe it's not. I'm learning the different genres or regions in India. I believe this one is the Kannadian language. I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. It's gorgeous. Yeah, it's great.
It looks like a movie I'd like to see, and just hearing you describe it, I think it sounds like it's worth
over on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest movies. This and one that I covered earlier in the summer, RRR, which is the biggest movie ever in the history of Indian cinema.
Wow.
This is right up there. This just came out and is already like, it's like the Titanic and Avatar, like these two movies that are
Indian
just like,
cinema.
yeah, it's just huge things. So
what do you give it?
I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's pretty great.
Wow.
And I hear that they're going to make a third one already. They're working on a third one. So
Same
I'm
stars?
In. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just continuing the story of this Rocky character.
Wow. I'm going to have to check it out.
Check it out. It's over on Amazon Prime, both parts 1 and part 2. I feel like part 2 is much, much better than part 1. So let's move into a movie that maybe came out a little while ago for our movie throwback segment.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about a throwback, and I thought, well, what were we watching 50 years ago? Well, 50 years ago, one of the big movies in the summer of 1972 was Deliverance. It's hard to believe that movie came out 50 years ago.
When you told me it's 50 years, I couldn't believe it.
I know, and it still holds up really as the quintessential survival thriller, really. I mean, we're talking about Beast being a survival thriller. This one it's really the movie that people quote often. There's lines in it that are cringy, but, quotable. It's based on a novel by James Dickey, who actually even adapted it for the cinema. And most of us have heard or seen this movie. We've heard about it or we've seen the movie, and it follows 4 friends from the suburbs as they embark on a seemingly, to me, poorly planned canoeing trip on the river in Georgia. I can't even say the name of the river. It's like the Kahulawasi River in Georgia, in this mountain wilderness. And along the way, the men, who are played wonderfully by Burt Reynolds, John Voight, Ned Beatty, and Ronnie Cox, they encounter some of the things that scare men the most, really. And that's untamed nature, city versus rural, and man. Memorably, it includes probably one of the most unforgettable rape sequences in film history, and it preys on masculinity, and it shocks viewers to the core, really. Even seeing it today, I think to myself, what did people in 1972 think of this scene?
This is like the 4th or 5th time I watched it.
Yeah.
And they get to that scene when Ronnie Cox and Ned Beatty get off, or John Voight and Ned Beatty get off the canoe, and I'm like, please don't let it happen this time. Maybe this time it'll be different.
Just hearing the toothless, deranged mountain men say, squeal like a pig, or he's got a real pretty mouth. I mean, it still gives me shivers, And as the men battle the river, the mysterious, unhinged mountain men, and finally the lies that they have to tell to protect themselves, we're shown just how far they'll go to, save their own lives as they know it, and also their reputations and their masculinity. This was a huge statement on masculinity back in the 70s.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, so many iconic moments in here. The dueling banjos at the start of the movie, right?
Yep.
And I'm just, each guy kind of represents a different part of man, I feel like.
Yeah.
The 4 guys in the party.
Agreed.
All kind of have different, and of course, this is the movie that made Burt Reynolds. Reynolds.
This is Burt Reynolds.
Mustache Burt Reynolds. I mean, he is. You talk about, in KGF, I'm talking about dripping machismo. I mean, this is Burt Reynolds being the man. He's the guy that even these 3 men are like, man, I really hope he can save our butt on this one.
Yeah, he's like Marlon Brando in Streetcar Named Desire.
Absolutely. He's a man's man.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed kind of reading some of the making of for this movie.
Yeah.
And what the production, the shoestring budget they were on. They had different actors that they wanted to get, and they're like, we can't afford them.
Yeah, did I hear like Jimmy Stewart might have been considered? Or no, Henry Fonda?
Marlon Brando, they were talking about.
Yeah.
And there were all these different casts, but they're like, So it's interesting that, John Voight, Ned Beatty, Ronnie Cox, even Burt Reynolds, they were not known people.
This was really Reynolds' first big movie.
Yeah, this was let's get some unknowns, and we're going to force them to do all their own stunts, basically. And you got guys getting banged up out there going through the rapids.
Man.
Ned Beatty got just pounded on rocks out there.
It's good to know. I was wondering as you watched, I was wondering about that, like if they actually did the ride down the river.
And Ned Beatty, they said, was the only one who had any experience of actually being in a canoe. And at one point, Burt Reynolds got pretty injured, and because they wanted to have this canoe going over these falls, and they tried a dummy, And they said, well, it looks like a dummy going over the falls. He's like, all right, I'll get in, and I'll go through these rapids, and got pretty banged up. And then afterwards asked the filmmaker, like, how did that look? And he goes, well, it looked like a dummy going over the falls still.
Wow,
like,
I did not know that.
Ned Beatty almost drowned to death. It was this whole production, like, you have to do your own stunts. We can't afford stunt guys.
Well, and right from the start, the graphics are it's like a college movie. When you first watch it, you're like, oh, this is just made on a real shoestring budget. You can tell. And it's just so gritty, and the shots. I mean, there's some beautiful shots in it too.
There are.
And there's some continuity issues too. That
there are.
You're like, oh boy, I saw that shot just a second ago.
Yeah. Yep.
But the movie, it just tells a great story, and the psychological development
right
of those
there.
Characters.
Yes.
Like you said, that's a great way to look at it. I never thought about it. It's kind of like different parts of a man. As we know it back in 1972, and really still today.
Yeah.
It's funny too, the dueling banjos, great scene in the movie. Everybody probably knows it or has heard the song.
Yeah.
They didn't even have permission from the composer
really?
to use that song in the movie, and they were sued.
Oh.
And the composer won royalties on that because the guys who recorded it and used it in the movie, that the version they used in the movie had actually ripped it off from a guy down south.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I saw that it won an Oscar for best song or whatever it was called at the time. Like, that song had been out forever.
Yeah.
And we covered it with a banjo and a guitar.
And it worked.
Won an award.
It's pretty great. I mean, that's the kid who does it.
The kid.
Oh, scary.
Something else.
Yeah.
Great choice. I love getting to rewatch Deliverance. It's one of the all-time classics.
Yep, I'm glad we did.
50 years.
Hard to believe.
Go watch it. All right, let's take a look ahead at some movies that are going to be all-time classics 50 years from now. We're turning to the weekend of September 2nd for our coming soon. I have a film called Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. This is going to be in theaters, and I believe also on Peacock, if I remember seeing it. Stars Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall as a minister and his wife who are going through some troubles, losing a congregation, perhaps some controversy within the walls of his ministry, and can his wife help save her husband and his ministry? It looks like a dark comedy based around the televangelist ministry. And then that's really it. That's really all that's coming out. We also have, for folks who are really excited for this, we have Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, which is the new series that is starting up from the Tolkien books. If you love those Lord of the Rings movies, I hear this is pretty good stuff.
So what you're telling me is summer's over.
We are in a desert at the box office and all of September. Yes, summer movie season is over.
It was a good summer.
Top Gun was great.
Yep.
But yeah, we are in a desert. So you're going to see for a little while, the coming soons are pretty thin. You can get a little creative over here on Real Reviews on covering movies.
But you always get the best analysis from you.
There you go. Thank you. Of course, we do want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie, for sponsoring this program, giving us a dream lounger to sit in for whatever the movie may be that we're seeing. Good, better, otherwise, it's always better in a dream lounger. So
absolutely.
Thank them. Next week, I am going to be joined by Jeff Robbins. So things are going to get a little crazy. We're going to be talking about the new film from Sylvester Stallone's Samaritan. We're talking about Mark Wahlberg and Kevin Hart's new movie, Me Time. And I believe we're going to be talking about John Boyega's new movie in theaters, The Breaking. So you want to tune in for all of that craziness. You also want to tune in to the Sun Prairie News, because this man is providing all the content about what you have going on in this town, in this area, in the best way, the best format possible.
Maybe we'll have a story on your big win in the Corn Fest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
Play that grotesque
and
video.
Of course, we have your quick hit movie review.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So make sure you tune into that. If you're watching this, you know where to find Sun Prairie News as well. It's on the same channel, so check it out. What time does that air? Do you know?
It's 8:30 Tuesday nights, I believe.
I like that. There you go. Tune in. Set your VCRs? I don't know how that works.
That's that.
Right. Thanks again for joining me.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Love having you here.
Yep.
All right, until next week, I'm Jamison.
And I'm Dan. I am Dan.
Thanks for watching.